What's up, Notre Dame fans? Mike Singer, blueandgold.com, with longtime Blue and Gold contributor Todd Burlage to get his perspective on this Notre Dame Oklahoma State Fiesta Bowl 1 p.m. Eastern Time kick on January 1st. So, Todd, ton of discussion from the fans, and this is why I wanted to bring you on to get your perspective on this, because so many fans, and I'm not saying all the fans out there, but a lot of them, I see on our Blue and Gold message board saying, this is basically a glorified practice and there's not a ton of significance for this game. Coaching staff certainly says that, like, this is basically our Super Bowl.
Right.
What would the significance of winning this game be from a historical perspective for Notre Dame, Todd?
Well, starting there, and that's one of the main reasons I think it is very important and a must to win. We'll get into a little bit more than that. But Michael, how old were you in 1994? There you go. See, so that's
1 year old.
That's the last time Notre Dame won an elite bowl game. They were 0 for 11. Happened in the 1994 Texas A&M Cotton Bowl, which was after the '93 season. They need to get their monkey off the back. We were talking about Lou Emoji before we went on air, and I sure wish he's going to be really worried about me in heaven here as I say this. I believe the number that Lou threw out at me a couple years ago was that 67 different teams have won an elite bowl game since Notre Dame won theirs. And so, I think from a historical perspective, it's very important to get the monkey off the back on that one, Mike.
I wasn't even one yet. I was born in August of '93, so just a few. I mean, that's got to be so important. It's like, like Kelly, even for as many games as he won.
Right.
I mean, what's the biggest bowl game he won? The LSU when they beat LSU. I mean, certainly not Iowa State in the Camping World Bowl. I mean, and how significant would it be, Todd? That's Marcus Freeman's potentially first win, and it's not like Notre Dame would be playing Pitt. Like, when that was a matchup, I was like, goodness gracious, when we saw
Right.
Notre Dame beat the doors off them last year. I mean, Oklahoma State's a premier opponent.
How cool would it be for Marcus Freeman to walk in here and do something that Bob Davie, Tyrone Willingham, Charlie Weiss, and Brian Kelly weren't able to do, and that is win one of these bowl games? I just think it's monumental. And you talked about, should it be a youth movement or should we all be all into this game? I think you can do both.
Okay.
You get a lot of extra practices, so why not, work in some of the youthful players and build your rotation up, start glancing ahead to next year a little bit. But at the same time, these seniors, these outgoing players, they're going to want to win this thing, and they're going to want to win it for one Marcus Freeman. And I think that would be a massive, massive start to his career to break, get this off their back in his first career game. I think it sets up fabulously. And when we talk about bowl games, we talk about teams, the momentum level that teams have. I just think that this driving force, this Marcus Freeman winning his first career game, kind of sticking it to Brian Kelly and lifting up Marcus Freeman, I think is a huge motivating factor for these kids.
Yeah, I'm Mike Singer, Todd Burlage, previewing Fiesta Bowl from this Notre Dame perspective. We are accidentally wearing matching shirts. We did not plan that. Make sure you guys hit the thumbs up on this video. Subscribe to our channel if you are not. Go to blueandgold.com, your home for Notre Dame football and recruiting coverage. When you talk about the youth movement, I mean, let's just be honest. It's really just Tyler Buckner. I mean, like, that's the player who people are talking about with that. I mean, the receivers, the young running backs, they're all going to play regardless. The defense, we're not worried about that. It's all about Tyler Buckner when the fans are saying that. And it's a fair point, right, Todd? I mean, that's potentially your starting quarterback against Ohio State next year. Talk about quite the regular season debut for Marcus Freeman as a head coach playing against his alma mater. That headline obviously writes itself. So what would you like to see out of Tyler Buckner? What do you expect to see? What do you think, Todd?
I'd like to see a little bit more in the passing game, I guess. He's always been obviously a situational player. He comes in and mainly uses his legs more than his arm. And I know there's been a lot of knock on, a lot of questions. Can the kid even throw the football? And understandably so. So I think you mix him in maybe a little bit more in this game, Mike, and let him wing it around a little bit. I'd like to see that. But at the same time, Jack Cohn deserves his time and his snaps and his wear because he's out of here. This is it for Jack Cohn. So I think it would be a disservice to him all of a sudden start to turn the page on this youth movement in a lot of ways, because in my opinion, Jack Cohn was the MVP of this team, and he's the one that got you here.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Todd, in our most recent edition of Blue and Gold Illustrated magazine, which you can find in the description of this video, you wrote your on paper article, stacking up Notre Dame and Oklahoma State. And I believe just before we started recording here, I saw a tweet that Oklahoma State's, I believe their starting running back is entered the transfer portal. So I'm not sure, if he'll be in the game or not. I guess you can still be in the transfer portal and play. It's a wacky time in college football. But tell us about Oklahoma State and Notre Dame, how they stack up. What are some Oklahoma State strengths and weaknesses?
Well, when you talk about Big 12 football, you typically don't dive to the defensive
Todd,
side of the
let
football.
me interrupt you. One of my favorite Lou-isms was defense in the Big 12 is a rumor. That is my favorite thing he ever said. But I know where you're going. Oklahoma State's defense is strong, though.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, just running a couple stats here. The 26.1% on third down defense, which is second in the country, only giving up 16.8 points per game, number 8 in the country, 91.2 rushing yards, number 5 in the country, and 278 total yards, which is number 3 in the country. So those are some pretty important statistics, obviously. But indeed, when you mentioned Jalen Warren and potentially the running back, as you mentioned, if he's not going to play, it does throw their offensive side of the ball off. Warren was a stud early in this season. He had 4 rushing games, 4 100-yard rushing games through the first 6 outings for Oklahoma State. Had some injuries, and he cooled
Todd,
off.
I'm sorry. It was Desmond Jackson. I want to say
Jackson?
he was the leading rusher in the Big 12 championship game. So, but still, he's a strong player as well.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I assumed, because Warden really is the number 1 guy. He's been dinged up a little bit with injury. He was unable to play in that championship game. You would think with this extra practice time that indeed they can get him out there. So I don't think that Jackson is as big of a loss as what Warren would be. I firmly believe that. But again, you're talking about Spencer Sanders, a quarterback from Oklahoma State, which was weird to me, Mike, to be honest with you. He was named the Big 12 Offensive Player of the Year, first team all Big 12 quarterback. Threw for 205.7 yards per game, had 16 TDs and 12 picks, and apparently he's the best quarterback in that conference. I thought that was a little bit strange. So not eye-popping numbers. Again, this team is driven by its defense. Doesn't turn you over a lot, but boy, they can get you off the field. They can get that offense off the field and get going again. I think that's the strength, is its ability to hold you down on first down, hold you down on third down, and get off the field quickly.
Again, folks watching on YouTube, please hit the thumbs up, like this video, support what we're doing at blueandgold.com. I mean, Oklahoma State is like an inch away potentially from being in the college football playoffs. So this is a real opponent Notre Dame is facing in the Fiesta Bowl. What's your score prediction, Todd?
Yeah, and you mentioned it. You led me right in nicely there, Michael. I think that, when you talk about motivation, that's such a key to these bowl games. And you can't help but wonder if maybe the win was taken out of Oklahoma State's sails when they lost that 21-16 game to Baylor in the championship game and spoiled any hopes of a playoff shot. Notre Dame a little bit different. Obviously, they narrowly missed as the number 5 team, but they played that crappy November schedule, so they knew they were going to have an uphill battle. Lots of dominoes were going to have to fall. And to me, that's what gives Notre Dame the motivational edge here. And so I like players to rally around Marcus Freeman. I'd like Notre Dame to win a defensive struggle 20-17, Mike.
Okay. My score prediction will wait. I will hold that for just a little bit. But I also like a low scoring game, and I guess I like Notre Dame to win. I can say that too. So I'm on board with you. So hitting the under, I think the over under in this game is, I want to say it's somewhere between like 40 and 45 points. A pretty low scoring game is what Vegas is expecting. So it'll be certainly interesting to see Marcus Freeman's first time as a head coach. I'm sure ESPN will have a dedicated camera just on him. Todd, were you going to say something?
Yeah, I wanted to ask you, Michael. I mean, do you think it's going to look much different this game? I don't really see it defensively, but do you think maybe Tommy Rees takes the reins off a little bit with some extra time to prepare?
I think Tommy Rees has had the reins off him just as a human being. I mean, I'm seeing him doing all these podcasts and YouTube shows all the time now, and he's just. I was watching something on Barstool Chicago on Monday night where he was just saying everything about Brian Kelly's departure that night when the news broke. I think he's just kind of unchained as a human. And of course, that is that plays a part into coaching too. So I think he is pretty much, autonomous on the offensive side of the ball. Kelly definitely spent most of his time as a coach on offense.
Sure.
So I think it'll look different in some senses. Every decision Freeman makes in terms of time management and, down and distance, some of those kind of things, even if Reese is making the decisions, it's going to be Freeman that people are going to look at and criticize.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that, and there won't be any middle ground, I don't think, Mike.
No,
There never is with Notre Dame.
never,
It, it,
never.
it's it's one of the more fascinating bowl games. Obviously, the playoffs mean a lot, but in all honesty, this is where Notre Dame belongs. I think they have a chance to get this off their back, break that streak, and what a great way to start their career. I mean, how ironic is it, though, Michael? You touched on it earlier. The first two career games for Marcus Freeman are the Fiesta Bowl, trying to snap this 28-year streak, and then you go to the Horseshoe to open next season. Pretty fascinating dynamic.
Great time to be a Notre Dame fan. Go to blueandgold.com, subscribe to our newsletter. It's also in the description of this video. Hit the thumbs up before you get out of here. We appreciate you guys for watching, and we'll catch you next time.